Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are examining what many are calling a major setback for Vladimir Putin after reports emerged that the Crimea Bridge suffered a serious collapse overnight, triggering shock, uncertainty and far-reaching consequences. The Crimea Bridge has long been more than just infrastructure. It has been a strategic artery, a political symbol, and a psychological pillar connecting Crimea to Russia. Any disruption to it immediately carries military, economic, and symbolic weight. For years, the bridge was presented as heavily protected and resilient. It was portrayed as untouchable, a sign of permanence and control. That narrative shaped expectations both inside Russia and internationally. When news of the overnight collapse began to circulate, the initial reaction was disbelief. Conflicting reports appeared. Details were unclear. But even uncertainty itself became part of the impact. Overnight events in war often amplify shock. They compress response time and limit the ability to manage perception. By morning, the damage was already done in more ways than one. The bridge plays a critical role in logistics. It supports the movement of supplies, fuel, equipment, and personnel. Any interruption immediately complicates planning and slows operations. Beyond logistics, the bridge carries symbolic importance. It was personally associated with Putin's vision for Crimea. Damage to it is therefore interpreted as damage to credibility. This is why the setback resonates so deeply. It is not just about concrete and steel. It is about confidence, messaging, and control. The collapse forced an urgent reassessment of security assumptions. Structures believed to be well defended were suddenly exposed as vulnerable. Such moments matter in modern conflict. They reveal gaps between perception and reality. Once those gaps are visible, they are difficult to hide again. The overnight nature of the incident added to the sense of surprise. Surprise does not always require large-scale action. Sometimes timing alone creates disruption. Reports suggested that traffic and movement were immediately affected. This kind of disruption ripples outward, affecting scheduling, supply chains, and operational tempo. Even temporary interruptions can have lasting effects. Logistics systems rely on predictability. Once that predictability is broken, efficiency drops. The bridge's role in supporting Crimea makes it especially sensitive. Crimea depends on consistent connections to maintain both civilian life and military readiness. Any strain on that connection increases pressure elsewhere. Alternatives are often slower, more costly, and less reliable. This is where the setback becomes strategic rather than tactical. It forces choices. Resources must be redirected. Plans must be adjusted. For Moscow, managing the narrative became an immediate priority. Statements aimed to reassure and control perception, but the urgency behind them was noticeable. In situations like this, messaging faces a dilemma. Downplaying risks credibility. Acknowledging too much highlights vulnerability. The bridge collapse also affected morale. Symbols of strength matter deeply in sustaining confidence during prolonged conflict. When such symbols are damaged, doubt can spread quietly. Questions emerge about what else might be vulnerable. This doubt does not need to be loud to be effective. It influences behavior, decision-making, and risk tolerance. The setback also drew international attention quickly. Observers understood the bridge's importance and recognized the implications. Analysts began discussing not just the immediate damage, but what it revealed about broader defensive capabilities. This shift in discussion matters. Once a system is seen as penetrable, it invites further pressure. The collapse also highlighted how infrastructure has become central to modern warfare. Bridges, roads, and energy systems are no longer background elements. They are targets, leverage points, and signals. Ukraine's broader strategy has emphasized pressure rather than spectacle. Infrastructure disruption fits into this approach by creating ongoing costs. Unlike territorial gains, infrastructure damage forces continuous repair and protection. This creates a drain on resources over time. Each repair effort competes with other priorities. For Putin, the setback is particularly personal in perception. The bridge was closely tied to his leadership narrative. Damage to it undermines claims of stability and control that have been repeated for years. Leadership in wartime is not only about battlefield outcomes, it is also about maintaining belief. When belief is shaken, even strong positions feel less secure. The overnight nature of the collapse also limited preparation. Crisis management under time pressure increases the risk of missteps. Decisions had to be made quickly, often with incomplete information. This environment favors those who prepared for uncertainty. The setback also affects civilian life. The bridge is used by ordinary people for travel and transport. Disruptions increase frustration and anxiety, which can influence public mood. Public mood matters because it shapes tolerance for prolonged strain. The bridge collapse therefore operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Militarily, it complicates logistics. Politically, it damages symbolism. Psychologically, it erodes confidence. These layers reinforce one another. Attempts to restore normalcy face practical challenges. Repairs take time. Security measures must be enhanced. Each step forward requires investment and attention. Meanwhile, attention drawn to the bridge diverts focus from other areas. This diversion creates opportunity costs. When one issue dominates, others receive less oversight. The setback also illustrates how control can be fragile. Systems that appear stable often rely on constant maintenance and protection. Once disrupted, restoring previous conditions is rarely straightforward. The bridge collapse will likely influence future planning. Assumptions about security will need revision. Revision under pressure is difficult. It forces acknowledgement of previous blind spots. Acknowledgement can be politically costly, but ignoring reality is riskier. For Ukraine, the event reinforces the effectiveness of sustained pressure. It demonstrates that even heavily guarded assets are not immune. This lesson may shape future actions and priorities. International partners watching closely will draw their own conclusions. Perceived effectiveness influences support, strategy, and long-term commitment. The setback also raises questions about escalation management. Infrastructure damage carries risks of retaliation and broader consequences. How those risks are managed will shape the next phase of the conflict. Putin's response will be scrutinized for tone and substance. Strong responses may reassure some audiences while raising concerns elsewhere. Measured responses may signal caution but risk appearing weak. This balance is difficult to strike. The bridge collapse also underscores the importance of resilience. Resilience is not just about preventing damage, but about recovering quickly. Recovery speed affects credibility as much as prevention. If disruptions linger, their psychological impact grows. The overnight nature of the event also highlights intelligence and counterintelligence challenges. Surprise suggests gaps in detection or response. Addressing those gaps requires systemic change. Systemic change takes time and resources. Time under pressure is always limited. The setback also affects long-term narratives. Claims of permanence and inevitability become harder to sustain. Narratives shape how conflicts are remembered and understood. They influence domestic support and international perception. The bridge collapse will likely become a reference point in future discussions. It symbolizes vulnerability where strength was assumed. Such symbols endure beyond immediate events. For viewers trying to understand the significance, it is important to see the broader picture. This is not just about a bridge. It is about how pressure accumulates over time. It is about how symbols matter in sustaining authority. It is about how modern conflict targets systems, not just front lines. Putin's setback lies in the exposure of limits. Limits to control, limits to protection, limits to predictability. Once limits are visible, they shape future behavior. The bridge collapse does not determine the outcome of the war, but it changes the conditions under which decisions are made. Conditions shape choices. Choices shape outcomes. As the situation develops, attention will remain focused on both repair efforts and responses. Each move will be interpreted for what it signals. Strength is not just action, but confidence in action. Confidence takes time to rebuild. The overnight collapse compressed that process into hours. This compression magnifies impact. It also creates lasting memory. Moments of surprise often define conflicts more than long periods of stability. This event fits that pattern. As analysis continues, more details will emerge. The technical causes, the sequence of events, and the immediate responses will be studied closely. These details will inform future strategies on all sides. What remains clear now is that the bridge collapse represents a significant setback. It exposed vulnerabilities and challenged narratives. It forced rapid adjustment under pressure. It reminded observers that no asset is entirely immune. The coming weeks will show how effectively this setback is managed. Management will matter as much as the event itself. Recovery will test capacity and resolve. Perception will shape interpretation. As always, we will continue to follow developments closely and break down what they mean. Thank you for staying with the channel, and we will keep bringing you clear and focused analysis as this story unfolds.